The studio lights glared down, cameras rolled, and the air was heavy with the kind of tension that only comes when worlds collide. The entertainment industry was buzzing that morning with a piece of news that shook millions. Donald Trump had reportedly canceled Howard Stern's show appearance, an appearance that was expected to make headlines across the nation. For decades, Stern had been a force in radio and television, the so-called king of all media, and his career was built on raw, unfiltered conversations. But now, his thunder had been stolen. And standing on the other side of the media spectrum was Greg Gutfeld, a man known for his sharp wit and unapologetic humor, ready to twist the knife just a little deeper. Greg leaned back in his chair on his late-night show, smirking. Howard Stern canceled by Trump. That's like Dracula being afraid of a paper cut. The audience roared with laughter. To them, it was entertainment, just another clever punchline. But beneath the laughter was a deeper story, one about pride, power, and the fragile egos that define even the biggest names in media. Howard Stern, sitting in his Manhattan studio the next morning, listened in silence. He had built his empire from scratch, weathered controversy after controversy, and reinvented himself countless times. Yet here he was, facing ridicule not just from his critics but from fellow entertainers who once admired his influence. For Stern, the cancellation wasn't just about losing an interview, it was about the slow realization that the world he once dominated was slipping from his grasp. Greg, on the other hand, had always seen himself as the underdog. Years earlier, he had admired Stern's audacity, his willingness to push boundaries. But now, he believed Stern had traded edge for comfort, rebellion for approval. And in that transformation, Greg saw an opportunity, not just to mock Stern but to position himself as the voice of authenticity in an industry filled with carefully curated facades. The clash was more than personal, it was symbolic. Stern represented the old guard, the shock jock era where outrageousness alone could crown you king. Gutfeld represented a new age of satire, where speed, relevance, and cultural awareness were the weapons of choice. Audiences, especially younger ones, were gravitating toward voices that mirrored their frustrations and their humor in real time. But Howard Stern was no stranger to being underestimated. In private, he wrestled with the humiliation. He replayed Greg's mocking words in his head, questioning whether he had lost his edge completely. He thought back to his early days, when no one gave him a chance, when every door was slammed in his face, when he had to claw his way onto the airwaves with nothing but a microphone and raw ambition. And he remembered the countless times people had written him off before. In those moments of doubt, Howard found something familiar, the spark of rebellion. Maybe he wasn't the young, brash radio star anymore, but he still had the one thing that made him dangerous, the ability to adapt. Instead of retreating, Stern chose to address the issue head-on. On his show, he spoke with a mix of honesty and vulnerability, admitting how deeply the cancellation and the mockery had cut him. But he also reminded his listeners that media, like life, is a battlefield, and survival comes not from being untouchable, but from being unbreakable. Greg, watching from his office later, expected anger or bitterness. Instead, he saw Stern strip away the bravado and show the human side of being a cultural icon. For the first time, Greg paused. It wasn't that his jokes were wrong, it was that he had forgotten the man behind the name. The rivalry sparked endless debates online. Fans of Gutfeld hailed his honesty and sharp humor. Fans of Stern defended his legacy, pointing out that anyone who had stayed relevant for decades deserved respect. But what stood out most was not the clash itself, but the way it reminded millions of viewers that even the loudest voices in media carried their own battles, insecurities, and scars. In the end, Stern didn't need Trump's canceled appearance to prove his worth. And Greg didn't need to mock Stern to cement his relevance. Both men had one thing in common: they thrived by connecting with audiences who craved authenticity, whether through laughter or raw confession. The story left a powerful message: fame fades, reputations crumble, and no one, no matter how mighty, is immune to criticism or cancellation. But resilience, honesty, and the ability to adapt will always outlast ridicule. And so, in that clash of personalities, audiences saw something larger than mockery or canceled shows. They saw a reflection of themselves: hurt, pride, laughter, and the courage to keep moving forward even when the world is laughing at you.